All right. Wow, 8 people at the start of the stream. There's a couple more people here. Hey, everyone. Welcome all. All right, let's make a tweet. Hey, SFan786. Thanks for joining us. You're the guy from Twitter today, correct? Awesome. So how far in the YouTube playlist are you? Hey guys, I see Forza's in here. It's good to see you again. Tony Double, it's good to see you as well. Let's see, who else? Yeah, Jeremiah, it's good to see you. Le Funk Master, pretty sure I've seen you before. So how's everyone? Alright, so what's happening in the second video? Just take a look here, maybe I can talk about the second video. So by second you mean part 1 out of 3? Gotcha. Alright. You know, we always... Oh yeah, I remember this. So let's see, by the end of part 1, I think we have something working. And I think my last commit, I gotta debug this. Or he's working on something. Making sure I get to all your questions. Yeah, we get something showing up. Great job. So on my Twitch bio. So cool. And did you find that through YouTube or developer Riot Games forum? Awesome. Yeah, I try to not spam on the forum that I'm doing this. Usually I'll read through a couple posts, and if I feel that I can help someone out with the YouTube playlist, I kind of just mention it. But yeah, I'm glad to see. Uh, I think I commented on your post, or maybe you saw my comment on someone else's. Yeah, who knows? What's your experience as far as development as fan? Gotcha. I think last time they linked me was like a couple weeks ago. This is where we're at right now. This is our site. Type in a name, it loads. So far we're just showing recent 10 games. This is using match version 1.3. And then last night I made a lot of CSS changes. I opened up all this space on the left so we can show more information, not just the games. I see. I feel that with just some basic coding, you should be able to eventually you know, go on your own. Once you learn the basics of web development, as far as what back-end code is, and then your front end. For our project, we have PHP for our back-end, and then in the front end is always HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But in the front end, we're using these libraries or frameworks that help speed up this development. Yeah, Jeremiah, if you want to link that. So you're saying you build a portfolio site? Yeah, just go ahead and link it. I'll check it out. So yeah, Mr. S Fan, once you watch the videos, you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. If you already have taken some sort of programming course. All right, let's check this out. Jeremiah Francisco wants to know my location. This is cool. Favorite language, JavaScript. When I started doing web development, my favorite language was not JavaScript, so kudos to you, my friend. It's definitely, to me, it just felt so different because I started off just taking classes in C and C++. And when I started looking at JavaScript, I wasn't sure what I was doing. But it's definitely a really useful language, especially nowadays where sites are just dynamic and whatnot. So yeah, Code Academy it's awesome. I think they had a free Angular course. Probably finished it in less than an hour. I think I did that about 2 years ago just for the heck of it. At the time, I already knew the basics of Angular, but was it Code Academy? Let me check. I'm not sure if it was Code Academy. Thanks. Not anytime soon, Andreas. So JSP, I use that at work, and I do use Angular, so I should be able to, once we're done with this PHP project, start over with a Tomcat version of the project using Java. And I think that will be the next stream, and that's definitely possible. I don't know about actually having JSP pages though, because for our project we're using PHP, but we're only using it to pull data from Riot to make our API calls. Yeah. I like your portfolio here, Jeremiah. On here, your name's spelled different than on your Twitch username. Is this pronounced how I'm saying it, Jeremiah, or is the I before the A? Yeah, really cool. It's always good to have that, or at least a place with all your projects. Uh, right after I graduated, I had a website, and I basically had the same thing. But after I found my job, I didn't pay the after the year was up. I didn't pay it because I figured I wasn't needing it. So now that website's offline, although I do still own the domain. And I had the same thing you have, just a couple projects on there. It's really good to have that always when you're job searching. It's probably good to always, even when you already found a job, just keep your site. Don't be like me. I just got lazy. I'll probably bring that up back up soon. But yeah, good stuff. Are you still in college, Jeremiah? Are you a sophomore, junior? Gotcha. Alright, let's see. I see sanitizer, and then a couple new names I haven't seen before. Guys, if this is your first time, let me know in the chat if you have any questions. If you want to introduce yourself, if you have a question about one of the YouTube videos, doesn't matter whether it was the first video, the second, wherever you are in the tutorial, you have a question, let me know right now and I'll get to that before I start working on where we're at right now. So yeah, what's up, sanitizer? Sanitizer, satanizer. Today I think I'm done doing CSS, so maybe I should change the title here on Twitch. Today we're definitely gonna use more data from the API and show it on our page here. Alright, so that line is updated on the Twitch channel. So yeah, if you're joining, I haven't really started. I'm just hanging out, reading the chat, getting to know more people. I should probably start looking at what I'm gonna do next or add to the page. Let's see here. For the games, for each game, I think I can show this slightly better, like your KDA, your how many awards or plays. And by the way, guys, yesterday I was working on CSS and I never noticed that when you're on home, and say if you refresh home, it breaks the site. And that's definitely due to HTML5 mode. There's a HT access setting I have to set on Apache that I'm not too sure what exactly I need to put. It's gonna take some researching, some Googling. So yeah, if you refresh home, the site breaks. Hopefully someone figures that out. Other than that, the good thing is we don't have to spend too much time here on home. Once you load up a profile, all the work I plan on doing today is going to be right here, so we just refresh this page and nothing breaks. But yeah, I don't know why that's happening. So yeah, let me look at what other API I can use today. As far as our profile page, we need to add more information here. I'm pretty sure that's an API to getting your stats for multiple champions. I think we can illustrate that here on the left. So let's see what's that on there. Could be this. Summary string per queue type. Alright, let's see here. We have a array here called player stats summaries. If we open that up, let's see. Oh, okay. So this is for each queue type. So let's see here if we can find solo rank. Alright, rank solo, aggregated stats. Not too bad. The only thing, so looking here at stats, version 1.3, you pass in your ID. The only thing I can grab from this response is if you go down to the object itself, you look at player stat summaries. We're going to have to get the object that represents rank solo 5v5s. So again, this is an array of objects where each object represents the game type. And that game type could either be ranked teams, ranked solo, ranked 3v5s. For our profile here, I'm just gonna get this. I'm gonna make this call and get the object that represents ranked solo. I just had it up. I just had it up. There we go, it's the last object. And then from this object, it has a couple keys. It has player stat summary type, that's just what says that it's ranked solo. Wins and losses, and aggregated stats, which I can use these stats to do some sort of math and do, say, how many kills per game average, total median kills per game, I think total turrets killed per game, average amount of turrets you kill per game. I think that's a little more questionable whether you want to show that in the front end. So yeah, unless I think I already have this data. So let's see if we look at what we're pulling right now. It might be under league, and then ranked solo. And these are all the other players in your league. Okay, so maybe it's not on here. Because the other day I was going to set up some API calls that I already had on here. For example, for game 1.3, you just get the last 10 matches, right? And those last 10 matches already come with a lot of information that you could pull from other API calls, but it's already added in here. So the stats object here that's part of each game, there's a lot of information I can still get from here. Let me give this a double check. There's a couple ideas I had today at work. I was thinking a couple things I can do with stats. Let's say for a game, I'm pretty sure from somewhere I can get the total amount of damage your whole team took. So then say if you're showing, if there's a role where I played a tank, then maybe somewhere in this line I would show the percent of damage that the tank took off the total damage your whole team took, if that makes sense. The end result we're looking to achieve here really is just to have a site where people can go in here and kind of just do their own thing. Honestly, I'm teaching more than trying to reach a end product, if that makes sense. At least I think I'm teaching. This template we have so far is pretty simple. I've had a lot of people, not a lot, but several people on Twitter that have been joining the stream. They've taken this template and they've spun it their own way. They added their own touch, and that's really what I want to see. I want to see people take this tutorial, learn a couple things, and then just be able to do their own style or their own website. So honestly, everything I've done so far, you can get the same data from so many sites already. I don't have to mention them. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here at all. It's really more about teaching. But who knows, maybe someone's going to take this template and they're going to come up with a way to do something that's not being done right now. And it's going to be the next popular feature. Like if you look at all the there's several popular sites right now for League of Legends. Yeah, so there's a bunch of top sites for League of Legends right now. And they're all doing the same thing. I think that the latest thing they're introducing now is replay. So eventually I do want to try to do the replay, though I haven't tried it ever. So whenever I get there, I need to make sure I prepare and make sure whatever I do works. Because I don't even think anyone has published a series of walkthrough steps for you to make a replay website for League of Legends. It's still a lot of gray area to that. Although if you go to the League of Legends website here and go to they have a documentation reference for spectating games. You can kind of read this. Now, I don't know if what I'm saying is valid. Just my initial thoughts from this. Say if you do have a website, your server is going to have to be a Windows server. It can't be a Linux. Because I think what's happening with these sites is that they take a game ID, and then on the server they have their site on, which I assume it has to be a Windows server. Their website executes the following command, which just loads up the game client here. Let me see. So I guess this opens up a stream of data, and what their server is doing is just storing that stream of data and saving it into a file, and then they just email you that file or provide it on their website for download. And that file just contains data, raw data, just a bunch of random characters if you were to open a file. But as long as you give it the right name extension, League of Legends can open it. So I think that's what's happening. I'll tell you what though, this is what's happening when you rewatch a game or spectator mode. I'm pretty sure this is what's happening. To the For someone that really doesn't know much about game development or programming in general, if you were to ask them, how would you implement a replay system? They'll probably say something like, oh, you just record all the video that's happening. But the truth is that, like, when you're spectating, you're not watching literally a replay of the video where, like, when you're in a spectator client, you know how you can rewind, pause. You're not rewinding and pausing a video. All that's happening is that the spectator client is just reading a file, and in this file there's like a bunch of movements and commands for each character, each minion in the client. So say I'm playing Ribbon Top. As I'm playing, the client is logging all my key presses, all my mouse clicks into some file, and then when my friend spectates my game, his client is just reading this file, and this file is just repeating every mouse and keyboard click and playing it out on their client somehow. That's really what's happening. It's more of that the client is recording all the mouse clicks and keyboard clicks into a file so that you pass this through the spectator client, and that just does a replay or just plays those same actions, if that's making any sense. So I think what's happening here, when you open up this stream where you pass a game ID, this stream of data is just going to represent the data I just described. So yeah, because of that, I think you need a Windows server, because I don't think you can install the League of Legends client on a Linux server. I don't know how that would work, honestly. I think I can try this right now, you know? I can probably load this up onto my command prompt and see what I get. Alright, so where can I find a game that's happening right now? I think one of my friends might be playing. Let's see. He's not playing. I need a game ID or something. I thought there's a way not to start up the spectator client. Maybe you're right. Like, I don't want to start up this. Or maybe that is what happens. Maybe that stream just starts up and the actual spectator client data that tells the client what happened in the game is probably hosted somewhere else. I thought some sites were like pulling that data stream from this command here, or from the client itself, and then just throwing it in a file. I don't know, man. Yeah, in a bat file. Oh, so that's what that site does. Okay. Gotcha. So in that case, the data is not in the file itself. It's just somewhere else, and that file just really just executes all the details for that game. I gotcha. And if hopefully I'm not wrong here, but when you start spectating a game, it doesn't matter if you join 30 minutes later. You can always scroll back to the beginning, correct? I feel like I should know this, but no. So you have to start spectating the game as soon as it starts, or as soon as it lets you start spectating, which is 3 minutes later. I don't know if you guys remember, there used to be a tool you can download. There used to be a tool you would download to your computer, and that tool would save files that you will play through the client. And that's what I was describing earlier. That's why I thought that, because I remember this app you would download. It was probably just called Low Replays. And sometimes the thing wouldn't even work half the times because of the updates. Yeah, so I think that's what that application did. Because that one, it will actually save files to your computer. And then, yeah. So, yeah, replay.gg does that automatically. TSM Insanity. Always with the tough questions. Yes, anything is possible. All you gotta do is just quote Goku. There's a will, there's a way. Do I have that blueprint right now? That layout? Set of or steps you need to take to make that possible? Not yet. But I think we can come up with something soon. We were just talking about this topic. And who knows? We might be able to enlighten ourselves. Let me see. Let me open up one of my emails from replay.gg. I signed up for the service. I just think I spectated a couple games, but didn't really think about what was happening. Sal, take my energy. Yeah. So first you make this API call, and this comes back with the encryption key that you use to build the command line. For some reason my... Oh, here we go. I gotta find a replay that's not deleted. I'm gonna have to look at my trash. Oh, I need to have my League of Legends client working, but let me look at this command. Guys, if you're just joining, we're just talking about a replay system. So this website, the data stream doesn't come from the League of Legends endpoint. It comes from their website. So yeah, I get the feeling that this server does contain the actual data stream of information that gets fed into the spectator client. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, oh well. This is something I have to try on my own, and it won't be anytime soon. Again, I'm going to travel next week, doing some traveling, using my vacation time, so it might be a while. Other than that, let's get to programming today, guys. I don't promise you that I'm going to be staying on for that long. I was hoping I could answer questions regarding the tutorial videos, depending where you're at, if you're stuck or if something doesn't make sense. Let me know on the chat and I'll get back to you with a question or an answer rather. So yeah, let's get started. So let's see. The idea I was saying yesterday. Well, first, right now, I think the easiest thing I can implement, just to get us going, if we look at our site, I think up here, I can show a percentage, or maybe a bunch of circles. I know there's a site that does this already, but I can show like circles that represents your last 10 matches. Green equals a win. Red equals you lost a loss. So, but actually, what I can use is I can use another library here. Angular or UI Bootstrap is just a kind of like Bootstrap properties or classes written in a way where you can use it with Angular cleanly, I guess. So you guys remember when I talked about Angular being really modular? Our application is basically right now we have 3 modules. My app is the main module that holds everything together, and to this module I'm just feeding the other 2 modules we have so far, other than version here, home and summoner, which we wrote already. Each module just has some sort of purpose to it. We can import other modules that people make online if we want to do something specific that's already written and done well. And one of those modules you can import is UI Bootstrap. I've used this a lot at work. And there's a lot of cool things you can do here. For example, the accordion. Let's say if you have a list that you want to show in a fancy way. Yeah, this library does that all for you. Then they give you the code. But there's something on here that if I remember, I think it was from this library. They have like a percentage bar. Oh, here we go. I think it'd be cool. Can you like show how to add a new module? Yeah, so we're gonna add this one. So I think it'll be cool if we show this one right here, the stack, where the green is just the percentage of wins, and the red, you know, how many you lost. We don't have to show the percentage. I think if we just show the colors, people will get the idea when they look at your profile. As soon as they see that bar, they're gonna figure out that you're either in a winning spree, doing okay, or you're doing miserable. And yeah, so we can implement this. So I think this library is already under my power components. I remember when I started this project, this whole YouTube, Twitch tutorial, I downloaded the modules I knew I was going to use for sure, and I don't see. Oh, here it is, Angular Bootstrap. So if you download it from the GitHub repository, you should already have the files for this. And all we're going to do is an index HTML, we are going to make sure we're referencing the Angular Bootstrap library. This file comes with the Angular seed, which is what I used to start this project, and right now I don't have an answer for you. At first I thought it was just for test cases, but let me check. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Let me see here. So I'm just reading a Stack Overflow answer here. If you remember when I explained the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, synchronous is maybe just a script, like a PHP script. You write code, and that code gets executed step by step. That's synchronous. When you have asynchronous, you'll write code where you might define a variable, and then you're going to call a function that does an AJAX. And if you remember when I said that a server can take either a nanosecond or up to a second to get a response back to you, depending their CPU usage or how much stress is under. So your JavaScript code doesn't really know, doesn't have an exact amount of time where it's going to expect this response to come back. It's two separate languages. There has to be a way for your JavaScript to know that, hey, this response came back from the server. So that whole process is asynchronous. So when you write your JavaScript code, you might start defining some variables, then you do some simple math, and then you do an AJAX. But what JavaScript's going to do is that whatever you have after that AJAX, it's going to keep getting crunched by the JavaScript engine. But then your AJAX, whenever the response comes back from the server, it's just kind of going to jump back to that block of code and do whatever it's set to do. That process is called asynchronous, where it's not sequential. It's more of, I guess, jumping around. So index async, what it does is that it loads up all these libraries. It loads them up asynchronous. So what I imagine is happening here, when you reference AngularJS, it's going to start loading that library, and it's not going to wait for it to finish loading this file. It's just going to keep going to the next file and the next file. I think that's what's happening. So according to Stack Overflow, someone said it makes sure your website load slightly quicker. So if you want to use this on Stack Overflow, they also said it's a little more difficult to read the code or understand what's happening. So it kind of makes sense that we didn't use this file, because in general, I'm teaching. Shouldn't it be at the bottom? So yeah, according to, I think Yahoo engineers published this a couple years ago, that when you have script files at the bottom, like our index.html, yeah, it's at the bottom inside the body. That is supposed to load quicker. So I don't know why asynchronous is different. Honestly, this is not that hard to work with, because all that's happening here is this is all the same, like body. That's all the same. All you really do is just here, whenever you have a new library or JavaScript file you're gonna use, you just add it. You just add a new string to this array. So who knows? I think maybe I should use this more often, but I bet this is not compatible in IE8. I think if you're building a website where you know it's going to be targeted for the latest browsers, you could probably use this. But no, this index asynchronous, where the files, the JS files get included, technically it's not at the bottom. It's at the top, where everyone used to do their referencing. And then if we look at index.html, yeah, it's at the bottom because that's what they recommend nowadays. Though I'm sure the difference is minimal. But I think what I noticed about index.html is that it supports not necessarily supports, but it's ready to handle when we have IE9, which I'm pretty sure Angular supports IE9, or maybe not. No, it does for sure, but these if statements here are for Internet Explorer only. And yes, I think this supports IE8, but our Angular version, I think we're using 1.4, doesn't support IE8, so this really doesn't have a purpose right here. If IE8, I'm saying a bunch of confusing things, guys. So, but yeah, that's a good question. TSM Insanity. I know I looked this up before a long time ago, and I just came to the conclusion that I don't need to use this because of the reasons I mentioned. So I always kind of just resort to using index.html. So yeah, what was I doing? We're going to add Angular Bootstrap library. So all we have to do is just reference the library. So down here where my scripts are, I think we can reference it right before our app. Doesn't really matter. So let's see here, Angular Bootstrap. And then we're looking for just the JS. And then what I usually do is kind of just give the page a quick refresh, just to make sure I spell the file structure right. Alright, so I didn't get any reference warnings on the console log, so I can proceed. So next, the next thing you do is look at how to add that module to your Angular module. And I think here, this is the example they do. This is how you reference it. So I'm gonna go to my app.js. App.js is what holds everything together. And I think I'm gonna do it right after ng-route. So ng-route, it's what's routing our pages. It's what's making our site kind of dynamic. It looks at the URL, and based on what you have on your URL, the ng-route determines what HTML template to throw and what ng controller to assign to that page, if you're wondering what that module does. Alright, so now that I added that module, I'm going to refresh the page one more time. Alright, we didn't get any Angular errors, so I think I got it right. Yeah, we need to optimize, and we're going to use the a database. I don't know what type of database yet. if I want to keep things simple and straightforward, I guess I can do my MySQL database, or we can try something more relevant nowadays. There's stuff like MongoDB. There's another database I just read about. It's called RethinkDB. And it looks kind of interesting. I kind of want to try it. But I know that if I do that, it's going to be... I'm going to run into a lot of issues that I'm not prepared to run into. MySQLi. Yeah, I think... I don't know. But yeah, we'll probably do MySQL just to keep things straightforward. Alright, so at this point we added this Angular Bootstrap library. So now we can use some of the stuff they have here as an example. We can start using that on our code and it should work. So what I want to use was the percentage bars. They have a couple cool things here. Let's see. I want to use the stack, so I'm going to read how to use it. So we're looking for stacked. Here's stacked. We have the randomize button. So all you do is you use the progress element. So let's see, let's go to home. No, let's go to summoner. Let me close out a couple. Alright, so we're on summoner, and where we're going to show this is right on top of the matches. Let's see. Okay, this is it right here. This is the list group, and let's add it right here for now. All right, so let's see how to use this again. All right, so you have a progress element, then a bar. We don't really need to do the ng repeat. They're just doing this as their example. Okay, I got it. So alright, so how do you set the color? Let's find that out. It's probably in the JavaScript somewhere. Type. Oh, okay. There's only 4 types, much like the Bootstrap colors. There's success, info, warning, and danger. So I think for us, we're just gonna use success and danger. So let's see here. Progress bar type. Here we go. And then the value, let's play around and let's just hard code some values just to get an idea of how this is going to look like. And there's something else I want to look at, because I imagine So that's just a percent. So then if I use 50% and... Oh wait, no, this could be a float. Just a sec, guys. Value my float. This gives you a number between 0 and 30. So therefore, if I just put 50 here, that just means 50%. You look at their example, when you randomize, it's the same percent, but these random numbers you're getting are never higher than 30. So that's why I know for sure that the percent is just being represented by a number. Alright, so refresh. I got an angular error here for progress. I think I forgot to end. I forgot to close my progress. And I forgot to close bar too. Did I do it again? What did I do? So we got progress bar. Stacked, we have button, progress, bar to repeat, type. Yeah, it looks good to me. Unless, oh, type, it's probably, this should be a string. Refresh, and still it's not liking what I'm putting here. Oh, I see. For some reason they have type, it's wrapped around. Angular. So it's just the way they define this directive. Yeah, just ignore that. I'm still getting an error. Let's see. Bar must have exactly one root element. I guess I need to show a value inside. That is what they're saying by root. So that's probably why they have spam. Alright, so they have progress bar, and then they have a bar, and then they have a span here. Nope. I'm pretty close. Let me look at how they're building this. Okay. Value. And then the type. I'm not sure why this is breaking. Let's try just one. Unless, of course, unless I'm using a... Unless I'm using... unless this is not compatible with Angular. Let's see here. Sal, you're a great singer. Thanks. You probably saw a YouTube video, I'm gonna guess. But thank you. I'm not the best. I just get by, man. I just get by with my silly voice. Requires Angular 1.3x, testable 1.4.3. I hope that's not the issue here. It's really odd. What I can do is I can just copy and paste one of your examples here. And if it works with theirs, then it works. It should work on mine. Technically, I have this same exact, except I'm not doing an ng repeat. Instead, I'm just hard coding in some values here. So I put 50 there, and I can see how that turned to 50. And then the type should be just a string. Which right there it worked. And then I think what's happening is that I don't have a... Nope, that still worked there too. So let's check what version of Angular I have. So if I had used Bower for this, it would have told me if there was a conflict. Angular, it's the first one. I should have known that. Oh, we're using 1.4.3. How come this is not working? What version of Angular Bootstrap do we have? We have 0.2, they have 0.3. So maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's just a difference between 0.3 and 0.2. So this is what I'll do quickly. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Alright. Let's see if I can reference this from index. Just a moment, guys. This is not going out too smoothly. I'm just gonna update the Angular UI version. And I think that was it. Alright, so that was the issue. So we had version 0.13.2, and what actually works is the next version up. So hey, we figured that out. And actually what I'm gonna do is get the minify version of this file, and then I'm gonna paste it in here. So I'm gonna guess that for me to get to that file, let me go in here. Source. Where are you? Is it on the front? Releases, maybe. Did I miss it? Am I blind here, guys? The heck? Alright, so let me update this file. I don't need everything else in here, I don't need it. Although, man, let me see. I'm gonna go in here and update. You guys don't need to worry about this too much. Just to make sure things are consistent, I'm gonna change this to 0.3. In case someone does want to use Bower with this project, I shouldn't break it. Alright, then I'm gonna go to index and put back the old link, and that should do it. And the last thing I'm gonna do is actually put the losses here. Is there warning or is it something else? It's danger. I was looking for the minify file just to make sure. I could have just typed it in here. I was just being silly, thinking about other things. I don't always process what I want to do the best way when I'm doing other things. So I just wanted to make sure that I can get to this file, that was all. Yeah, sure. So you wanted me to go over the CSS? That's really all I've done this week. I think. I mean, unless you come up with something specifically, I'm just going to go over the CSS. Alright, so now this should be showing up on the top. Yeah, there's a lot of people in here right now. A lot of names I've never seen. Well, I've seen penetrators. Good to see you. There's a couple guys on here. I'm not sure. Don't be shy. If this is your first time watching, let me know in the chat if you got a question. I'm all here. I'm only here to help. So if I have to go back to stream number 1 or 2, I'll go back. Let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume that you're happy just watching the YouTube videos and you're just here to check out what I'm doing, or just to get an idea of what to expect. Which is not a bad idea to do. So, alright, so what I want to do is here, I want to show this bar to represent, based on my last 10 games, the percentage. So in this case, how many games did I win here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so I'm 5 for 5. So in this case, I'm going to show it just like that. So now all we do is just come up with a map for this. It's not too hard. Let's see what's the easiest way to come up with an algorithm for this. If we look at our JavaScript, we have our match object, we have our games. So in this array, each game is an object. And then if we look in here, I think in stats, there should be a win key. If it's true, you won. If it's false, you lost. Pretty simple. So what I can do actually, if you remember, in our summoner.js, we're already looping through these 10 games. So let's go in our code here. Summoner.js. Summoner.js. So here when we get profile, this function's what gets called when we load the page here. And in our Ajax and our response function, this function is just what we wanted to do when we know our server came back with data. So let me go through these steps again, because I know there's people watching and it's your first time, and I know you have questions you just don't want to ask because you're shy. What's going on when we go to Summoner, we go to this URL here. Our Angular is just clever enough to point the right JavaScript code to this page. And if you look at our folder structure, it's not hard to find out what code, don't want to show that. It's not hard to find out what code I execute for each page. So right now we just have home. We have this home module, which is under the home folder. And then we have the summoner module, which is under summoner. So if we open up these folders, I see that I have an HTML, a JS, and a PHP. Everything related to this page, it's in this folder. So that's what's happening. So when this page shows up, our JavaScript, whatever is inside of this controller, it's going to happen. So in this controller, we see that as soon as this loads up, as soon as this the ng route points the controller to this page, it's going to render. And as it renders, we define a couple things we're going to need. We're not using this anymore, actually, the item keys. Here you can see I defined that loading animation that's happening here. Here I'm saying loading dot start off with just nothing. And then here I make an interval where I'm just appending a period to that loading string. Pretty simple. The next thing that happens is this Ajax call right here. On the left blank side, I want to put stats for champions, unless someone comes up with a better idea. Like, what's your best champion? What's your best role? Things like that. It's my idea for now. So yeah guys, so this Ajax loads up, and that's why you see the loading string at the top of the page when you load the page. So this loads, and then so this function is an Ajax, and it's asynchronous, meaning that we don't know how long the server is gonna take to get all that data. It could be a nanosecond or 1 second. We never know. So therefore, this process here is asynchronous. And what happens when I use this .den syntax? This is when I know the server is done handling my request. This is when I know that I got data back from the server. So here, if we look at our page and you open up your developer tools, you can monitor this process. So here, I'm just going to refresh the page. I'm going to see here that this Ajax happened. I hit the PHP file, and I can see that it's still pending. See, still pending because I don't have a response. And actually, you can see. All right, and then the response came in. When this response comes in, this is when this .den gets executed. Simple enough, right? Is there a way to make the loading faster? Yes, we need to add databases on here, man. And we're going to do it just like every other site does it, where when you load a profile, it's instant. But at the top of the profile, it kind of gives you an idea of when the last time this profile got updated. And we're just going to have a button that's going to execute the same function, get profile. Again, but it's going to hit the API instead of the database. And then as we're pulling that data in the back end, we're going to take it and store it in the table. So yeah, we need to do that really soon. I don't know if I'll get to it tonight though. Again, this is the last stream for a week. For this week, and then next week there's no way I can do streams because I'm going to be outside the US. I don't even know if I have internet where I'm going. I should, either way, I won't be able to stream. Yeah, MySQL. I think I'm just going to do MySQL. So again, guys, when I was explaining this should be pretty clear to you what's happening. When the page loads, it does the Ajax, it hits the engine.php, it sends it some instructions. If you look at here, the request payload is telling the backend, hey dude, I need you to get profile for a certain summoner ID. And then here, this response is what the database sends back, which is just a giant string. The thing is that this string represents JSON elements. So our JavaScript just converts that to a JSON array or object or whatever it is. And then when we get that response, this is when this .then happens. So if you look at this function, when the response comes through, I just say interval cancel. This interval is our loading string at the top of the page. And then you see here I have this response. That's the data I got back. That's the data that you find here inside of this response box. That's what this response is. So here what I'm saying is that I'm sending that response to scope that summoner. So again, if you haven't gotten to the point where I explain what happens with scope in Angular, this scope service is just for me binding things from JavaScript to the HTML. Anything I tie or that I append or any key or property I add to the scope object, because really this is just an object in JavaScript. And when you do dot, when you have an object dot, it's like you're defining a new key, a new property to this object. So in this case, I'm just defining a property here called summoner, so that I can go to my HTML here, and I can just pull that data and paste it on my HTML. So here you'll see something like summoner name. Summoner name is part of this. It's part of this response object. If we look at the console here, here I log the response. This is exactly how it looks like. So here you can see that this is an object, and this object just has a bunch of properties, a bunch of keys, one of them being name. So that's here. If I want to get that name in my HTML, I just do summoner.name, but I have to include my curly brackets here because that's how I tell the page that this is going to be some sort of Angular or JavaScript reference here. So therefore, you know, that's how you bind things. That's how this cell here, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from this scope summoner.name. So going back to what I wanted to do with the percentage bar here of win and losses. I think if you were to think about how I want to determine the total amount of games I won and lost, you know, if you took some basic programming class, you probably already thought about doing a for loop. And in this for loop, you're going to have two variables where you just increment whenever this case is true or false. And at the end of this for loop, we should have two numbers, wins and losses. I think that's what we're going to use here. It can't get any more simpler than that. So that's why I mentioned I think I'm already looping through all the games. I'm not doing a for loop, I'm doing an Angular for each. So it's not a bad time to introduce, or not introduce, I've used Angular for each before. But if you didn't quite understand what I'm doing with Angular for each, I might as well explain it right now. So let's see. So I have knowledge of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Should I learn? What other things do I need to learn? For MySQL, or are you just saying in general for life or for your engineering career as a web developer? If you want to be a web developer, you need to get into some sort of MVC programming style. That's either Ember or Angular. There's a couple of others, but I truly recommend Angular because I love it. And Angular is it's here to stay, man. You will find so many jobs that require Angular nowadays that you'll be stuck for a long time. You'll have a job. So please learn Angular. I'm commending you right now, Mercad. What else you need to learn, man? This is what I know. This is what I know, and this is what's getting me by so far in life. I know those things you mentioned, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But Angular is definitely my strongest suit, and because of Angular, I can do a lot of projects quickly. Because Angular does so much for me that I don't have to worry about writing all this JavaScript code. I just define a couple modules, a controller here and there, and whatever it is I'm doing is just super clear in my mind that I don't have to stress out, and I can get things done quickly, and the code is maintainable. Can't tell you how many times I look at code that was written 10 years ago where the style of web development was just so bad. Then it's nowadays, back then people thought it was okay to have a PHP page, and then in your PHP page, like, echo out some HTML, echo out JavaScript, then have a block of PHP. That style of programming gives people headaches, man. For backend, I haven't done Rubies, to be honest. So far for my backend experience, I've done PHP and Java. Java is what I do at work right now. I mentioned this a couple of streams ago. Java scales well from what I've read. The only problem with Java is that it requires a lot of prerequisites, and you got to define a lot of files or a lot of settings before you can get a project rolling. Like, for example, when you define a servlet, it's like you can imagine that this engine.php in Java, that would be my servlet, where I'm just going to send the servlet some sort of instructions. In our case, our engine.php is like the servlet, and the instructions I told it were right here. I told it to get a profile. In Java, you have servlets, and before you can even use the servlet, first you got to compile it, and then you got to make sure that your web.xml page defines this servlet that you just coded. So there's a couple steps just that you need to do before you can get something roll out and working. So yeah, but again, Java scales well. So you will see today, you see a lot of companies that are maybe 10, 15 years old that use Java. But if you see a younger company, like a startup, maybe 2, 3, 5 years old, they pick frameworks or languages that are easy and quicker to roll out. So, for example, PHP, it's not that popular, but it's still so much easier than Java to set up and have some sort of demo application or prototype that works. Then we can get these, investors to look at our site and see that we got it working in such a short period. They're going to throw a lot of money at your company, right? So nowadays you see companies that pick PHP, Ruby, what's another, Node.js. All those things are mobile and rapid. You can do rapid development with those things, I guess is what I'm saying. Same with databases. Nowadays you don't see people picking MySQL because it's kind of too chunky. You have too many tables where you have to do a lot of joins just to get something that's relevant to itself. Nowadays you see companies picking MongoDB with Node, where it's completely the opposite, but so much easier to do rapid development. So and Merca, yeah, like Docs One mentioned, I recommend fully understanding JSON elements and how they work and how you can build yourself. There's really not much to a JSON. Really, it's either you have this bracket here or a curly bracket. And when you see a bracket, that's just an array. When you see curly brackets, it's just an object. When you see a bracket with a curly bracket inside of it, it's an array of objects. And that brings me to where I was going to explain Angular for each and why we're using that instead of just some basic for loop. So let's do a for loop. This is what they teach you in college. There's this array of prices or spending. And this array just represents how much money I spent the last week. This is definitely not a good way you want to model this. I mean, this is just an array. So first, I don't even know what this $23 were spent on. So if I wanted to get more clever, I can make this objects, where each object represents something I spend money on. Only that to this object, I can add more coherent details to the object, such as the place where I spend the money and how much it was. Alright, so that's one object, and then let's say that later on that day I went and put gas. So let's see, it takes 30 bucks to fill up my Civic SI. And then I went to Chipotle. So in college, you know, you have this array, and then the teacher tells you, hey, make some code that tells me what's the total amount of money I spent today. You're thinking already a for loop. So in JavaScript, how do you define a for loop? Pretty identical to C and C++. That's our for loop. And actually, I forgot to define store my total. So I need to define a variable called total. You guys know where I'm going with this, man. This is pretty basic. Alright, of course. Since this is an object, I have to specify that I want the key cost. And yes, hold on. This is still not right. Oh, unless this is something else here. I don't know what that is. But this console log, this has to be my last log. I screwed something up here. Anyways, you get a total. And this is not right. Let me see if I figure this out. Oh, is this a string? Yeah. Oh, okay. I wonder why this is considering this a string. There we go. So I was appending strings for some reason. Because although I defined this as clearly as a float, apparently it still thought it was a string. So thanks a lot, JavaScript. Anyways, yeah, that's the logic, a for loop. So why don't I use for loops? Because Angular for each is a little more clever. So Angular for each, the way it works, you're going to specify the array. And then you want to specify how you want to reference each object in this array. In this case, I'm going to say just item. And then this function just defines what you want to do with each object, right? So what I want to do with each object, the same thing I do in here. Just add up a total. But instead, now I don't have to reference things with the index. Now I know that this reference here, item, is going to go through each member in this array. So my code's going to look shorter. And there you go. I think I got a higher number because that total was already set to something high. There you go. So that's why we use for each, because we want to be fancy and hipster-like, and for loops are for babies. I'll be right back, guys. When I come back, we'll finish this this thing we were initially out here to do. So just a sec, be right back. And I'm back. Alright, so where were we? Alright, so this Angular for each here, I'm looping through each game already. So what I'm gonna do is right before I loop through each game, let me see. For this response data match, it's an object. We learned that already. And we can look at the code to see. See, we have this match object, and then we got the array of games. Well, just to this match object, I'm going to add a new variable, a new key, a new property that corresponds to corresponds to the total amount of games I won and I lost. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to initialize total won, total loss. I think that's a pretty simple naming convention. All right, and in my loop, all I'm going to do is, for each case, I'm going to count up. All right, so now that's part of this match object, and eventually this object is going to be part of the scope.summoner. So this means that we already have a way to reference this, these values. So what we do next is where we define this progress bar for the value here. Let me make sure I can reference a scope variable here. I know I can. When you define directives, there's a couple settings where you specify how you want to bind scope elements or JavaScript code. I'm not going to go too much detail into that because we haven't really made a directive, so don't worry about what I just said. I could tell you what a directive is though in a little bit. Alright, so here, let's see how they do this. The value, okay, they just reference a scope member. So I can do the same thing. So here I can say summoner. Perfect. We refresh the page. And what are we gonna have? It's gonna look identical, I know that. Oh, and by the way, instead of showing one loss, I think we can show the actual count, which is just stored in here. We gotta, looks like I defined something as probably my code here. Oh, here. I did so much math that I spelled out math. So that broke because of that. Not a big deal. There's a couple more changes we want to do here before I reloaded. Hey, Unity Boxy. How am I? What's up? Not much. Just having a good time here programming. How are you? What's happening? Unity Boxy. I think I was seeing your stream the other day. You do stream, right? Or maybe you don't. Must be some other guy. Early morning. So let's see, you're either in Netherlands or Germany, perhaps? I think, because the other day I was watching somebody do a project in Unity making a game. Was that you? I am from Ukraine. Ah, There you go. Further east, I guess. But very cool. Yeah, I've noticed I have a lot of. There's a couple other guys from Europe. There's Greece, Scotland, Netherlands, and now Ukraine. That's one more. Yeah, it might have been you. So yeah, thanks for joining my stream. Because this is your first time checking this channel, or yeah, this channel out, right? Alright, we just got a syntax error, guys. Angular. Whoops, where did I get all these curly brackets? Where did you learn Angular? The internet. Mostly, yeah. The Angular documentations are pretty good. Stack Overflow always has a bunch of good questions or answers and questions. Always start by that, by asking the internet what it is you want to do. But definitely also read the Angular reference here, the API. I found them to be just as helpful. And then just building projects, you know, just Treehouse. I haven't heard of a Treehouse, or Treehouse itself. Is that a website? Oh, guys, I forgot to reference stats, so I'm not hitting the right win. That's why it's saying that I lost 10 games, because this case is always being false. So let's see, like this right here, it's always false because I have to. So what is this, stats or stats? Yep, stats. That should do it. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Unity. I'll check out Treehouse, by the way. It must be like a code school. But yeah, Unity, so far there's been a couple things that I've done that I completely had no idea what I was diving into, but it's better when you're streaming and you know what you're doing. But it doesn't mean that it's bad to stream something that you're doing and learning at the same time. That would be actually kind of interesting to watch, because it's kind of cool to see how the person figures things out. You know, what's their style, what's their first, what's the first thing they do when they see something break and they have no idea why it broke. So I think here, for what we're building a website for a game called League of Legends, using Riot's API, and I happen to be a developer already, so doing something as simple as just making an API call to an endpoint, a URL with PHP, it's straightforward, and I'm already good with Angular, so when I do these streams, I kind of have a good idea of what I want to do and how to do it, but there's already been a couple cases where I ran into a wall, and it didn't feel good. But yeah, definitely doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. So right here, guys, this should be 50, so I just need to times this by 50. Or times this by 10. Let's see here. And this will break let's say if we were doing the same feature here for more than 10 games, then you're gonna have to do more math. But because I know I only have 10 games, I'm gonna times this number here by 10. And I'm pretty sure I can just times it in here. You know, I'm being lazy though. I should just do it in the back. Well, that actually worked. So yeah, you can do that. Oh, but this number is not so yeah, let's actually convert this in the back side in the JavaScript to the percent it should represent. So instead of just multiplying that in the front end, what am I saying front end? Instead of doing this in the HTML, man, this is the front end, but I don't have to use that word here because I'm just talking about the front end. So instead of doing that on the HTML, let's just do this in the JavaScript here. And then one last touch is to maybe show a percent sign here. Alright, so that does that. That's a cool new feature. You guys can't say we didn't do anything today. How long did that take to do that? A while, mostly because I explained a lot of things along the way. Whoops. What's going on here? One of them is 5. It's like one of them didn't even get multiplied. Let's see, loss, and then here we got win. Alright. The average for a web developer, I say if you're out in the East Coast or just east side of everything other than California, I think you're looking at somewhere 50, 55 or 60K. 50 to 60K for anything other than California. Oh, is that what happened? Win total, loss total. Oh, okay. Good catch. And that should actually be win total. Although, if you think about it in grammar, it should be the other way. But let's not think about things too hard. Win total is probably makes more sense than one total. Doesn't matter. I actually just left it. I'm just being picky now. But yeah, I saw the mistake. I had this down here as win, and I was incrementing 1. So yeah, in Cali, yeah, 60K. In Cali, it's probably double just because, well, Cali is also super competitive. You probably, I'm sure you find a lot of competitiveness in Cali. And the cost of living is really expensive. So yeah, California, they pay you a lot more. Unity, I'm sure of that. I think Merca, you're in California, right? So yes, Omer, yes, I'll get to you right now. How do you get a localhost server running? And I'm gonna do this quickly, because it really doesn't take that many steps. So yes, just Google SAMP. Download SAMP if you have Windows. Hit Windows. That's gonna download. So 60K a month. I mean 60K a year is roughly around 5K, yeah. But after Obama takes your money, it's more like maybe between 3 and 4K after you pay taxes. What are you doing in Ukraine? Do you work with Unity? Are you a game developer? Omer, let me know if you download XAMPP. The installation is straightforward. Just hit next. There's not many things you need. There's nothing you need to check off that's gonna make things work different than how my setup is. But when you're done installing, Omer, you should have this control panel for Apache. Let me know when you get there. Probably TSM Insanity. Though again, I'm sure Riot has a lot of great engineers already. Awesome, Omer. Let me know if there's anything else. The last thing I'll mention though is once you have the control panel, you need to hit start on Apache. That's what actually runs the local host. And then there's a config you need to do from the control panel. Click on the config, then load up Apache, the httpd.conf. This brings up this text file. Scroll down, and you might want to change. There's a setting here for document root. Where is it? Document root. You might want to change it to this. So if you were to download our project from the GitHub repository, this is the folder structure. That way you just extract that folder in the htdocs folder, and then once you set this setting to document root, all you have to do is on your URL just type in localhost and it's going to point to that project. Well, yeah, and then you got to think about Riot Games. There's probably a small percentage. Well, I don't know. But again, Riot Games, they make games. So if as a web developer, unless you're building internal applications for the whole company, or or as the on the developer forums, those guys are working on the API. Those guys are probably web developers. Other than that, I don't know if there's a lot of areas for web developers at Riot or openings. Who knows? It is a really big company, so don't take my words as valid. Yeah, like I know Riot Games is growing fast right now, so I'm sure they're looking. Omar, say I have a HTML file and I want to put it in the localhost web server. What changes do I make to that directory file? You don't have to make anything. Oh, by the way, when you download a XAMPP, the htdocs folder has a bunch of files in there. Delete everything in htdocs. You don't need it. All you need is the folder htdocs. So first, delete everything. Second, just go ahead in that folder and make a file. Name it index.html, and then write in some simple HTML code, maybe like a header 1, and have it say hello world. We'll see. I don't know, man. I do not know. I do not know where this could take me. Again, I'm sure those guys have a lot of talented engineers already working there. And yeah. And yeah, what I'm doing right here is pretty basic, guys. When we start talking about the replay system, that's a little more complicated. And then there's data mining, like how all these sites are just data mining all the information you get from the API. They store that information in these database schemas that are just, they work well together, you know? And that's also a skill to have, like how you want to lay out your database. I mean, we can do that. I'm going to do that. But so far, we've been doing simple things. I hope they're simple. But it's gonna get complicated when we get into the database. Omer, let me know if that worked for you. Just I have the camera off because I'm eating fries right now, guys, and I don't want you guys to see me eat. Sal, are you a full stack developer? Technically, yes. At work, I go and do work on back end and front end and database. I've been doing pretty much everything since my internship, and that's why my CSS is not that strong because I think most of my knowledge is in Angular and then backend code. I mean, I know CSS basics. I know enough to get by. And obviously, I kind of use Bootstrap as my crutch, because I'm handicapped when it comes to styling. But other than that, technically, yeah, I'm a full stack. Guys, I'm gonna commit this. Do they teach you in internships, or do you need knowledge before you go in go in like the basic? You need some sort of basic understanding. So my first internship, I wasn't even doing programming. I was working for a utility company, and I was first I was doing something that was not engineering at all. They kind of just you start off just getting to learn the place, um, doing a little bit of doing customer support. You know, so people will call in, and you have to kind of diagnose their situation, why they lost power. So I was doing that for the first 2 months. Then I was switched over to looking at circuit blueprints and making sure all the load balances, um, making sure everything in that circuit balance out. So you would use this program where you would check to make sure there's not a low voltage in that circuit due to too many or due to insufficient uh, transformers or whatnot. So anyways, what happened was that I was able to write a tool in PHP, and that tool was enough to impress my boss to put me in programming. Uh, so that whole time I was there, I knew PHP from a previous project I did. Uh, I just never felt that it was good enough to convince the boss that, hey, maybe I should be in a group with engineers or programmers. But that day, the time I made that, it was enough to impress him. He's like, yeah, you're gonna be. Well, he asked me, what do you want to do? You want to do programming or what you're doing now? And I'm like, well, it's up to you. And then the next day, without him officially telling me that I was moved to programming, the next day I was in programming. So I was fortunate there. And when I joined that group, I knew very little JavaScript. I kind of knew some HTML and CSS, but my JavaScript was really weak, mostly because my background was in C and C++. That's all I knew at the point. And JavaScript, the style is just completely different. First of all, you don't even have types, and the code is just so loosely, and the rules are just not apparent at first. That every time I try to write JavaScript, it breaks, and I didn't know why it kept breaking. If one thing breaks, everything breaks. But then, just to conclude my story here, you know, I just kept working through all the you know, the difficulties I came across and gained experience. Eventually found out about Angular. Eventually found out about object-oriented PHP. You just pick things along the way, man. And I said this on the forum the other day. The key to learning is to truly grasp what it is you want to do in life. So at one point during that internship, I fell in love with web development so much that I'm like, hey, if this is something I'm going to make a living out of, I need to actually understand what's happening. I need to understand what's happening with the server, with an Ajax call, with the client side. I need to know all these details, and I need to make sure that I can explain it to someone else. Otherwise, I'm just a, what's the word? I'm just a fake, I guess. So the key was to learn, and to learn in a peaceful way, in a curious way. You don't want to just rage and throw your keyboard across the room when you don't understand anything. It's all about, first of all, if you love doing it, you're not gonna just lose your temper over not understanding something. So that was key. Never give up. Learn, read, practice. It's like when I used to do math in high school and college. I think the only way I got better was just to do math problems a ton of times until I remember a certain, strategy for that math problem. The same thing with programming. Just write a bunch of Ajax calls until you actually are able to write an Ajax call without looking up a reference. All right, so I'm done talking. There's a bunch of stuff on the chat I should read. By the way, guys, I pushed out to the GitHub repository. You guys can go ahead and download. And let's read the chat. All right, let's see. So yeah, KHM Weekend. Plenty of resources online. And why not? There's a YouTube playlist of all the videos, streams I've done. Check that out. I think you'll understand or get an idea of what you're getting into after you watch at least the first 2 to 3 YouTube videos. Depends on what you learn. So yeah, anything you do in computer science requires some sort of knowledge. And let's see what else. Things such as programming. Yeah, we use PHP. Hey Sal, if you actually need some help with design, UX, and all the visual stuff, just message me. Awesome. Yes. Well, do you know any CSS, or are you like into other UX design for other languages? Like what I'm trying to say here. You feel strong enough to do something in CSS, say for this project. If you were to just fork this project, could you make this look really nice? Because right now there's nothing that's holding anyone back from forking. You do your own rendition of it, and if I see that that's something you're good at and that you want to keep contributing, I'll just give you the master, or allow you access to the master, and you can focus on that while I focus on the functionality of the site. If that makes sense. Yeah, Code Academy is really good. There's plenty of YouTube videos too. And yeah, and that's actually a really smart way to do things with Photoshop. One of my closest friends in the field, I worked with this guy in several projects. He was like that. His strong suit was design, and his CSS was really good. He kind of knew Angular, but I will always show him up on Angular. I will always show him how to do things. But when it came to styling, like, this kid knew it all. He was awesome at it. He made all the right decisions for our pages. And the reason I bring him up Unity is because he did this exact same thing you do. He will open up a Photoshop and he will render what he wants it to look like. And then he will use that blueprint and then go in and dive in and write the CSS code. So yeah, I will add you here, and I'll keep you in mind, Unity. I think Unity, you code during while I'm at work too. So if I see you streaming, I'll join your channel while I'm at work and check out what you're doing. So yeah, awesome. Thanks, Unity. I love that I'm doing this, man, because I'm making friends from all around the world right now. There's a couple other guys that are really cool too. Little Smith, who didn't join the stream tonight. He's a pretty cool guy. TSM Insanity is a little spoiled, but he's still a pretty cool guy. I don't know where TSM Insanity is from. Pretty sure it's from Europe though. Mercad's pretty cool guy. Thank you, Omar. Let me know if you need anything. Check out the YouTube playlist if you're just starting. And yeah. So yeah, when I started this, man, I thought 4 years from now, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna land a great job, and they're gonna think, I remember this guy Sal. He used to stream on Twitch, and he's the reason why I got into web development. And then that person's gonna message me. I'm gonna be old, and I'm gonna think, wow, I influenced somebody's life. Let's see, online resources. Yeah, so let's see, Team Treehouse. I'm really glad that you guys are helping each other out. Oh, you know what? Something I recommend. I used to listen to this podcast in college, way before I got into web development. This Developer's Life. It's a great podcast to listen to. At first, you know, they might throw a couple things around that you're not quite sure what it is, but yeah, these guys talked about a lot of relevant things at the time, and it's not that they just talk about programming and all the technical details to it. They also talk. It's mostly about, as the title says, this Developer's Life. Life-related things that happen to developers, sorta. In most cases, it's in the job or on the job. Like the drama one was about someone having an argument over code styling. Either way, this is a good podcast, and I used to listen to this back in college before I wanted to do web development. And I think one of these guys founded, not GitHub, but Bitbucket. I might be wrong. Or I think they had the person who founded Bitbucket on their podcast. I don't know. These guys are pretty smart though. So that's a good podcast if you wanna, I don't know, listen to something as you program that's somehow program related. Check that out. I'm talking too much. I haven't even programmed at all that much today. Yeah, I recommend it. I love that podcast. Yeah, good night. I think I'm also gonna end the stream right about now. It's 10 o'clock. Sorry I didn't do too much today. I did commit. We'll pick up right here when I come back, guys. I think it's good that I won't be streaming for a week because there's probably a lot of people watching the YouTube videos, and there's plenty of time for you to catch up if you're still not done with those. This last stream is going to be uploaded a YouTube playlist, so you'll have that. Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot, Unity. Thanks for stopping by and talking. As for everyone else, thanks for joining. Follow me on Twitter. You can add me in the League of Legends game. My in-game name is just Sal, as you can see here. I'm in North America. You can add me. I can play games with you. So yeah, again, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good night. Until next time.